Hey, what's up, folks? How's it going? Welcome back to another session. Just having a bit of coffee and opening up some cards, talking some art and hobbies. We're just gonna hang out for a little bit. I did an art stream earlier this morning, but I figured, I'm just gonna hang out today in the house. I had some work I had to do, which I kind of wrapped up generally, but I wanted to just still open up some packs and kind of get into the hobbies that I usually have. So you guys are welcome to hang out and also sketch, draw, or ask questions and just hang out for the session if you like to, whatever you like. I do have two packs I'm gonna open up. And these ones I just recently picked up on at a local card shop. I've been kind of going around different places in LA and Pasadena looking for some places for, things of similar interests of comics and cards and art and gallery places. So I found a place really close to where I live that primarily sells in arts and also in comics. But they also do cards. So I wanted to kind of get into that and open some packs up. While we're here, of course, you guys can ask questions and interact and talk as much as you would like to. And will I be sketching today? I'm not sure just yet. Maybe, maybe not. It's dependent, on time, and also based on, not really of interest. I'm always interested in sketching, but really more in time, if anything else. I did, like I said, I did do a sketching session early this morning, so it's a bit more specific and unique in the fact that I was sketching with a group of people. So it's a little bit different in that kind of experience. So I might still sketch for myself a little bit. But let me just throw some kind of stuff away and get these opened up. As I said, I welcome anybody to interact and ask questions as much as you want to. I'm just going to organize these a little bit. Do I play basketball? I like shooting the basketball. I don't physically play games. Going to the gym and stuff like that and playing them. I certainly don't mind, being outdoors and shooting the ball. I do have a basketball hoop outside my front yard, so I'll go out there mostly just for personal interest. And I used to play when I was younger. I used to play on certain teams. I used to play with my brothers a lot. So it was something that, in general, sports was interesting for me. Not just basketball. I really enjoyed playing baseball when I was a kid. Of course, when I was younger, my parents signed me up for things like martial arts, the Korean, taekwondo and tangsudo. So we used to do that very heavily, me and my brothers and siblings, quite often. So the sports aspect of it, the physical elements, I quite enjoy, even though I'm a smaller guy, frame guy. Like my brothers are way larger than I am. They take them from my dad's side, I take them from my mom's side. But I kind of carry still that kind of athleticism from my dad's side, because from my dad to my uncles all had the body types for athletics. So I kind of definitely latched onto that, and I am able to pick up on things athletically pretty quickly. It's just that I don't have the stature. So, but I still enjoy doing it for fun, if anything else. Welcome, JZ. And yeah, I'm going to open up some pack of cards right now, just talking, interacting with people. We might do some drawing and sketching today in just a moment. I might go back into my accordion book, which I finished up on with the Wolfman piece, but I kind of wanted to do one more of a Wolfman thing, but with full body instead. So I was thinking of using this spread over here to extend this piece just one more element. So it's a possibility in which I might do that today. For the moment, though, I am opening these cards, and I have a whole stack of top-loaded cards that I don't get. I actually opened up some NFL cards recently as well too. These were just personally just opening it for myself. So I just like collecting cards. And these are just a stack of notable ones that I wanted to keep to the side. Not all of them are special. Some of them are base cards. But a lot of them are also just kind of interesting as players, but also as designs for me. Specifically looking for ones that I wanted to go for. Here's LaMelo and Anthony, Ja, and a couple other guys. These cards will they ever grade under like the PSA kind of stuff? I don't know. I'm looking into it. I wouldn't mind on some of them just because I like the casing on it and the way it displays. So we'll see where it goes. In any case, yeah. I just want to see what we have here. And again, this particular pack in this box is from a different line. It's still Panini. Panini seems to be like the major brand now. Optic. This is a Don Russ plan. And then it kind of gives you a whole list of ideas of what you can get from this thing. There is a potential for autographs and whatnot and inserts of Prism cards. So I like this for the uniquenesses of designs and stuff like that. So in any case, questions are open for anything though. It doesn't have to relate to things that we're actually doing right now. If you guys have questions about art, industry, social media, whatever case you want to talk about, please let me know. Some base cards that we'll kind of go through. If there are any rookies, this is a rare rookie. Jalen Johnson's a good one. Put that to the side. Siege I actually went on independently on my own, just for certain players that I like. Another rare rookie. This one's upside down and also numbered. So recently, in a lot of the card packs I've opened up, I haven't gotten them numbered. They're more just like base level. So it's nice to have some of these as options like these. This is a Jalen Green also too. There's a purple, and this is signed. It's autographed. First pack. Looking for anything print-wise, corners, centering, that kind of stuff for just general quality. It's pretty good. This is number 14 of 20 cards total, so that's pretty nice. Question: how different is Instagram subscription than without it? You know, to be honest with you, I have no idea, Ali, because I turned on the subscription option on Instagram, but I don't really use it right now. I just turned it on just to have it in case. I don't always think about ways of monetizing everything, and for Instagram, I certainly don't really intend to do so right now. I thought about how I could maybe integrate that to not just for monetization, but just to help on being able to have specific groups of people that are legitimate, you know, in terms of interacting. So, for example, I got a good recommendation today about the live drawing that we did together as a group, and I'm trying to manage like how I bring in, you know, people into those sessions. You know, the 5 people that draw with me. And right now, some of them were like students and stuff like that, which are great. But I also wanted to make sure that it was an opportunity for a lot of other people, you know, to be able to interact with me as well too. So what I thought about is they said, you know, why don't you do like a Patreon where people can subscribe, and if they want to join in on your live streams and stuff like that, they can kind of throw their name in the bank like that. I thought that'd be kind of cool, but I thought also then it came to mind of this subscription that you're talking about. So on Instagram, there's a subscription-based thing where you can sign up for. I think you have to pay a certain amount. I think I have to set that. I haven't done anything at all. I only just turned it on, but I haven't set up any details. But from that, I thought that maybe if I announced stories or like these kind of like group live stream sessions on Instagram using the subscription-based thing, people could sign up for it. So if they wanted to join me as a part of the 5 groups of people that would draw, I thought about doing something like that. But at the same time, again, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go through the trouble of sending all that up, and nor do I want people to like pay for it. So I'm still trying to find the balance of like, because I want that experience of drawing with people with 5 individuals on Magnet Studio to be free. I don't want it to be something that people have to pay for. But again, I have classes for stuff like that, you know, where people can come into the class and they can get feedback, full sessions, technique, and education. But for something like this, I want it to be more based on interaction only, you know, building a community, building, you know, connections, and letting people kind of like get a chance to interact in some way. So, question here from Melia is, what do you recommend to artists who are working professionally but not in the area they want to? Good question. I'm currently doing advertising illustration, but I want to be doing sci-fi fantasy illustration. So that is a pickle, isn't it? Right? So you're working in the field, but you're primarily doing advertising work, and I'm sure you're doing a relative, you know, having relative success in that, you know, job placement in terms of, you know, sustaining yourself and being able to pay rent and pay and get for food, all that kind of stuff. It just becomes a job though at that point, right? The question is, do you find it creative, inspirational? Does it push you? Does it challenge you? Does it actually invoke in aesthetics and the interest of things that you have? Obviously, it doesn't seem to, because you want to do sci-fi fantasy illustration. Now, in terms of what application, I don't know what you're meaning. You know, it could be for like book covers or gallery work. It could be comics. It could be design for like, you know, the field of animation and games. So it varies quite dramatically in terms of where you would apply it to. But at the same time, you know, you presenting that question does lead me to the idea that that's not where you want to stay. So what would I recommend, you know, in terms of people that are not necessarily in that area, but maybe want to, right? I mean, the first things first, you have your day job. So that's your priority right now, okay? So you have a 9 to 5, whether you're working remotely or inside of a studio. And so you do your work, let's say it's from, you know, 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. You go home, which I hope that you're already doing this, that you're already producing work for yourself, for you, not for like a portfolio, not for like a client opportunity, not for freelance gigs, but you do it because you like, you know, producing that work, the fantasy stuff, sci-fi stuff, illustration. It could, again, be for comics. It could be also for illustration pieces like posters or prints or whatever the case is. The first thing is just to get that discipline and rhythm going of generating work. Okay. Um, Once you start to get that in place and you start to kind of create a backlog of work, my suggestion then is to go to the idea of generating theme things, projects. So they don't have to be story based, but they can be themes based on like a genre or a grouping or a visual aesthetic that kind of like leads one from another one, right? And so it not only continues to help you generate more content of that work, it could be then curated to be presented on like social media. It could be potentially produced into something of your own product. Again, you can make prints, you can make stickers, you can make little mini books or comics or sketchbooks, right? And so this should be a long-term plan, maybe in a year or two or three. Uh, Currently, right now, I don't know how long you've been working in advertising, but if you want to move into that other field, it's not going to be an immediate jump. And I'm sure you understand this. So giving enough time, again, 2 3 years, you might be able to start to transition into that field more and more. Now, if you're having this expectation of thought of like, well, I want to work for like Wizards of the Coast, doing magic cards, will you be able to just jump into that automatically? Again, it's all dependent upon your skill set. If you already have the capacity to paint and draw really well, then the transition to that might be a bit easier for you. But if you don't really have a lot of that training just yet, you might need to spend some time building that skill set, right? So the first thing to do is give yourself a chance to evolve, mature in that field, while you can still sustain yourself. I wouldn't just cut your other job off, right? You shouldn't just leave and somehow think you can make it freelance. It would be very risky. So it's not to say that you shouldn't have that intent to fully commit, but you do need income, right? All of us need to work in some ways. Jackson rookie. Oh, nice. Shorter card. And we have a silver and a purple. Davis Prism is here. And a rookie. I'm actually going to sleeve these. So from there, as you generate the work, Amelia, the next step, if you don't actually procure, let's say, some kind of client work, freelance job, again, it could be a request for illustration or commissions or something like this. To be honest with you, I would actually be looking at local conventions and cons, expos. Now, I don't know where you are, but depending on where you live, something like that might exist. Okay, if you have a local Comic Con, apply for like an artist alley table. It might cost $300-400, but you might be able to sustain that, as a 1 or 2 time thing in a year. And as you have a table, the experience of actually interacting with people, generating work, like prints, books, stickers, and stuff like that. Not only can you then, start to sell them, you'll start to get a sense of what the audience wants from you, right? You need data of information as to what people seem to like about your work. So just producing it for yourself, then of course, not enough. From doing it for yourself at first, just to get the rhythm and the interest kind of peaked, you got to be able to move into something actually producing to show people. Social media could be a good thing to share it, but from there you have to also maybe even sell it. What is sellable? What are some people willing to pay for in your work? Is it original work? Again, like is it the other stuff that I talked about? So based on that, it might give you a set idea of a plan as to where to go from there. Okay, I hope that helps Amelia a little bit. Harry, welcome, man. How's it going? Just got a PS5. I'm excited to doodle on the front plate. Nice. Can you point to me on what I need to do to buy the prime, to prime the plastic for drawing on? Okay, so what Harry's gonna do, he just bought a PS5, PlayStation 5. Now I bought my PS5 when it first came out. I was thankfully able to get my hands on one at Walmart, actually on digital, and I got the disc version. So the front plates on the covers of the back and on the console can be taken off, both sides, and it's a white, plastic panel. Don't draw straight onto it, okay? Because the plastic's been treated. So if you use a certain type of ink, it'll kind of what's the word? It'll bead like water, right? So it's kind of like a water-resistant covering. Like a certain permanent marker might work okay, but I would still treat the surface. Not even prime it just yet. What I would probably do is I would actually strip it on the top coat using acetone. Okay, just get any kind of like nail polish or acetone using paper towel or cottonwood, whatever, or cotton that is. Just wipe a layer off using acetone. This will help treat the surface. You can prime it. That probably would help a little bit in terms of smoothing out the surfacing. Now, I didn't prime. I did the acetone, I stripped it, and then I went directly into the surface of the plastic. This is just because I wanted to maintain the same plastic color of the original PS5. So if you prime it, you can just prime it white. It should be okay, but it'll make it a bit somewhat matte unless you get some kind of semi-gloss prime, which most of the primes are going to be matte anyways. So you can do that, and then priming it will make it much easier to draw on in terms of any mediums or art, inks or pencils or whatever the case is. But that's the way I would treat it. Acetone first. You can prime based on option if you want to. If you don't prime, draw directly on it using, let's say, permanent like ink tools. Not like Sharpies, but there are other types out there as well. But Sharpie could be also fine too. You could pencil it initially if you want to, but if you do pencil it, erasing the pencil would be a little bit difficult because the surface of the plastic is dimpled a little bit. So when you put the pencil on top and you try to erase the underlay layer, it won't erase all the lead from that part. It'll retain some of the lead inside of it. So if you think you're going to do an underlay sketch with a pencil and think that you can just erase it off, it actually won't work that well. If you prime it, it'll be easier. Priming it and using a pencil to erase would actually work a lot better because it smooths out the surface. It fills the pockets of holes in the dimpling of the plastic. So I went straight ink. I went straight ink. I didn't use a permanent based ink either. I actually used the pigment based inks and water based inks. So as I'm able to treat the surface of the plastic, it sits well on the plastic surfacing, but I have to top coat it. So after I draw, what I would do is I spray a fixative. Spray a fixative about 2 coats, let it sit for a little bit, and then I put another gloss coat on top, which is like think of it kind of like a gloss medium, a matte medium, using acrylic plastic. And you'll be set. Hopefully that helps you, Harry. Just to preview the back a little bit, we do have another prism and a silver. For those of you that are just trying to join in right now, we're just having art conversation about hobbies, questions about industry, about advice on things you guys are trying to do. So you guys are welcome to ask questions of any type, and I'll try to give you my best thoughts and advice towards things, as I have my own hobbies of opening sports cards. Will I always be doing sports cards in the future? I don't think so. Right now, I'm kind of on this kick of looking at NBA sports cards, but I have a lot of other interests in Marvel cards, art cards, that kind of stuff. I've actually even thought about opening up a pack of Garbage Pail Kids cards. So those came back. I saw a box of them at a local card shop. I was like, oh my god, they're back. And I used to have Garbage Pail Kids as a kid as well too, back in the 90s. I even watched the movie, and I used to like it as a kid. That movie did not hold up very well, Garbage Pail Kids. But the cards I enjoy quite a bit. Herbert Jones is a nice one. I'll sleeve up some of these rookie cards later on. Base silver. Let's put this one here. Josh Hart. He's with the Blazers right now. So the Blazers are playing today. And he's been doing pretty good for the team. So I follow the Blazers on Portland. And the Lakers too, actually. Those are the 2 teams I follow. One, because I'm from Portland. Went to high school up there, went to school up there. And when I moved down to LA, the Lakers were something I was following for a little bit. But those are the 2 teams I would root for. I'm not adamant on following sports. Like right now, I've been watching the NBA quite a bit. For football, I do follow the Chargers. The LA Rams are okay, but I actually follow the Chargers because I also lived in San Diego for 7 years, and I used to visit the NFL games. But as I moved to LA, the Chargers came with me. So, favorite musician? What I'm listening to right now, JDZ, is 70s rock. I'm actually listening to Creedence Clearwater, a lot of their albums. So I actually like more classic rock and tunes, jazz, and also funk. I like old school hip hop. Today, a lot of pop music today I don't really listen to as much. I prefer more old school stuff. And I actually really like folk music. I like a lot of instrumental stuff. I actually do like electronic as well too. I used to listen to a lot of metal and a lot of new metal as well too in the 90s and 2000s. So my genre of music is all over the place. I used to really listen to a lot of industrial, a lot of electronic stuff, and it's kind of not necessarily like. Well, I used to listen to trance also, like Juno Reactor. I used to listen to back in the 90s. I don't know if anybody here would know them, Juno Reactor. But then from there, I used to also listen to a lot of Prodigy, and then even KMFDM was really awesome. Rammstein was really cool. So my range of music is all over the place. I was on a huge funk kick for a while in the mid 2000s. I used to listen to. I actually went and even saw Maceo live. That was amazing to see too. can see some of the back cards over here. Looking for any more additional autograph cards. I picked up already one autograph. This is a Jalen Green rookie purple prism. That's a really nice card right there. Amelia was kind of adding to the suggestions. You love the idea of themed projects, helps a lot. Maintaining the energy to create after your day job has been hard, but something of great inspiration. Yeah, that's what you want to do, Amelia. Yeah, Harry, the boot camp dynamic sketching will be starting up next week. I'll be sending out welcome emails tonight. I have a meeting with my TAs today at around 7 p.m. I had a slight fix on my figure boot camp because that's said on Saturday, but the class is on Thursday. So hopefully people are okay. Do I have any TMNT cards, like Turtles cards? I used to collect the movie ones back in the 90s when the first Ninja Turtles movie came out. I used to collect the trading cards of the movie. I don't think I have any of those right now as a kid anymore, or from a kid when I had them in my binder. There's some packs of cards or I guess collection of cards that I don't really have anymore for some reason. A lot of them I kept. I brought them over from when I grew up in Oregon. Rookie does a nice job. Base. JT Thor, good one as well. Base, but rookies. Let's put this one here. A Middleton Prism. I'll just sleeve these just because. And I'll research these later on in terms of like their collectability. Put that here for now. Best Korean Jesus. In terms of tacos or burritos, I prefer tacos. And I prefer, I like both, green and red sauce. Favorite Jordan? So when I've been doing a lot of collecting in the last couple of years, and when I was younger, my favorite silhouette actually was the Jordan 5. Not a lot of people like that one as much compared to like the 4s or the 1s or the 3s. Everybody would say like the 3s is like the most comfortable, the 2 is like the most hated. And up to about what Jordan 7, 8s, they're going to be like the vintage, look to things. The 1 has become my favorite today, but I really like the 5 a lot. The reason why I like the 5 so much because it reminds me. I actually posted this thing on social media recently on my sneakers account. I've been looking at a lot of sneakers, but in questioning like why am I so attracted to that aesthetic, the vintage look of things. And when I do a lot of research of like airplanes or mechanical stuff, when I draw things, I'm also very attracted to like classic warplanes, classic cars, armor sets, and different designs of weapons, but a more vintage look of stuff. Is it just because it's old? I mean, not necessarily, but there's a certain look about it that has this interesting blend where today's designs is all about streamline, high end materials, and we appreciate that luxury aspect of it. But there's something about the functionality mixed in with something that feels very kind of like I don't know, a little bit clunkish, almost heavy duty to a degree. It's the line work in it, the segmented lines of the panels, of the layering, of the shape language, maybe I don't know. But I look at like the Jordan 5, and it kind of reminds me a lot of the warplanes, of course, which is where the main inspiration was, right? You see the shark teeth on there, kind of reminds me of like the P-40 Warhawk. Um, so that connection between like the sneaker designs of the classic look to like warplanes to me, I love a lot. There's something about a vintage design work that I really appreciate. So even like Star Wars, McKay is saying like Star Wars, which I agree with. You look at the Tie Fighters, and the front end bubble is like similar to like a B-29 bomber, right? Or any sort of bomber plane from the 1940s. It's got that front bubble canopy with the big kind of frame and chassis on it, and that aesthetic is really beautiful because it's got that riveting, almost like an architectural look, brutalesque, but at the same time kind of it's aerodynamic. It's still relatively modern in that state of time. So it's got that really nice hybrid for me, where it was coming out of a period of where technology was kind of like it was good and it was obviously used in things like war or performance and stuff like that. I'm talking about like World War One, 1920s and 30s. But once you get into like the 1940s and 50s and 60s, design in like transportation, fashion, weapons, to whatever the case that we deal with in our culture, went through a lot of changes and shifts. Especially as there were a younger generation of people that were like leaving World War II, and they grow up and they're not going to drive their grandpa cars anymore from the 1900s. So you get rid of the 1910 Model T and you go into like the 1940s and 50s, like these beautiful like Cadillac cars or rat cars and doing a lot of customization, and you get a lot of this really kind of like explosion of a style to a degree, independent kind of like voice of expression. So within fashion and everything. So once you get to like the 1960s and 70s, it becomes all about like heavy engine power, Detroit muscle, especially with the cars and stuff like that. But it starts to find itself a bit more. The 80s and 90s is a weird period. The 80s was fun, but the 90s was kind of like was odd. Like fashion was pretty cool, but vehicles was kind of so-so. Um, but then in the 2010s, you start to have a resurgence of that kind of vintage look again. So it's kind of interesting in terms of where stuff like style comes from. So when somebody asks me the question of like favorite Jordan, it's a pretty loaded question for me because it goes into the idea of design, so much of it. That's true. Well, 90s and Japanese styling is different than American styling. 90s in America was 90s in Japan was awesome. From the animes to the fashion to the vehicles, right? This is PCU question answers already, but advice on making and selling your art of books and the do's and don'ts. Again, another loaded question. I don't mean to have these questions to become such big things I have to like go into, but to me, it's something like that. It's like when I want to make my own work and I want to sell it. What are some of the do's and don'ts about that? And there's so much behind that in terms of what you can do and maybe you shouldn't do. Now, I don't want to go into every little nitpicking aspect of what I've done in the past, but I'll tell you some more generalities of things. Um, the first is, of course, you can't expect a fast turnaround. What I mean by this is that when you put something out there, you expect it to be a relatively positive response. People want to buy it, people want to request more of it. There's a lot of interest, right? A positive validation in terms of wordplay. Like people will tell you things about like what they like about the thing. So you expect there to be that kind of return. And usually there will be, but it won't be as large as you would like it to be. Now, of course, most people have a slightly more realistic outlook towards what they're going to do, and so they'll kind of put themselves in a position to make sure they don't oversell it and don't set themselves up for that kind of expectation. So it's still good to have excitement and enthusiasm as you share your work and sell it that people will want to have it. So you have these fantasies, right? Of course, dreams and things you want it to be successful, and you don't want to feel bad if it doesn't is if it's not accepted and that kind of stuff. So it's also risky, especially if you're putting money into it, and also the fact of like you don't want to be embarrassed, right? So there's a nice one, Pal, another Blazer player that I'm going to put to the side. I'm going to put these over to SN, Hartford, another prison, but I'm going to put this in a sleeve just for the moment. But that's the first thing is don't expect things to have that explosive return so immediately. It'll take time to build. Start small, okay? Start kind of conservative, which is if you're doing books and stuff like this, 20-page little sketchbooks. Take an 8.5 by 8.5 piece of paper, A4 sizing, just kind of fold it in half. That should be the size of your book. Just go to your local printers. Doing just basically a saddle stitch book is going to be cheap, easy to produce. You can do color, black and white is fine. Color covers are great. Soft covers should be perfectly all right as well too, because again, investment of money is going to be much less in that situation. Another affordable thing to produce is a number card right here. Is stickers. Stickers are easy to make. Go to there's many different sticker options out there in production. I go to normally Sticker Wrap, but there's other places as well too. Prints are relatively easy to approach as well. Finding a good local printer is pretty important. So research a little bit locally as to what's around you. If you can't find anything around you, you can go online for options. Potentially things like blurb.com, whatever the case is. There's many other online printing options out there now as well. So you might want to look ahead as to like what's potentially available to you. But start small, okay, and start curating work. Theme things, as I mentioned, Amelia is good. So theme based on like subjects. It could be based on genres, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, whatever the case is. Find something of interest to you, obviously from there, and so that you can kind of keep pumping out work. Definitely incorporate the social media as much as you can. I don't care if you have 10 followers or 10,000 followers. Use it to your advantage to at least share it with those people that you have, right? If you can get them to help you out to share it with their audience is the best way to go about it. And of course, lastly is consistency. As you initiate this, direction towards producing something, keep producing yearly. Like one thing a year is more than enough now. Okay. More base cards. Get these out of the way. Base cards. Nice rookies. I'm gonna put up to the side. We have a Chris Paul. Ooh, this one's been one that people seem to really go for. The Cade Cunningham rookie cards. I wish this was in a prism, but as a base, it's gonna be okay still. I'll top load this one. Nestor, hey, welcome back, man. I wonder if you have read, seen Slam Dunk by Inoue, and I have seen it and know of it, of course. It's coming back in a film, I believe, real soon. I think actually even this year, potentially. I don't remember. But I'm more familiar to Takahiko's Vagabond series, but I do like Slam Dunk a lot. Yeah, keep going on those goblin sharks. They're amazing animals. So, Kevin, you're asking, what are your favorite looking cards? You personally love the Pokemon, but your opinion is limited just at Yu-Gi-Oh and sports cards on Yu-Gi-Oh and sports cards. Well, for me, I grew up on a lot of Marvel cards at first, comics, Marvel stuff, and back in the '90s, for us, it was all about the holograms, right? And the price for a lot of these kind of like cards back then were super cheap. Like a box of something like that back in the day would have been like 20, $30, right? But a box of sport cards today, it's ridiculously expensive. But it's a hobby I'm willing to pay, mainly because I'm able to afford it and I'm willing to spend on it. So, I kind of shift my hobbies from one thing to another kind of through the months as I go along. So, I have multiple different interests of things like archery and, the hobby cards and comics, but I don't spend all my money on all those things at once. I tend to shift as I go through the year, right? So, this one's a nice one. This one's in the number card. Rookie and Wiggins in the red. 75 of 85. So these number cards are going to be a little bit more highly sought after because they're more limited, especially being prisms. These are autograph cards, so this one's also should be numbered 14 and 20. What's this one? No. Not numbered. This one's numbered 1695. I should read real. It's oh, I should read it. Yeah, in terms of the Slam Dunk series, for sure. Daniel was saying you been wanting to try the archery out. I would recommend it. It's actually a great exercise to do on a daily basis. It's super simple. It's not really that expensive. I mean, you're only paying for the bow, which is going to be costly. Arrows are not cheap either, too. But you only need, to buy one bow. Get a standard kind of entry level, which is just a basic recurve. I would say going from like a 15, maybe not 15, but maybe like a 20, 25 pound draw is going to be more than plenty for training. Get a set of like 12 arrows, make it cut down to your size. Researching online on like YouTube is going to be really helpful because there is a lot of like specifics in terms of understanding archery. It's not about just buying the proper bow and draw weight. It's also going to be about understanding your what is that called? There's a distance between the bow from the knock point to then the rest. I forgot what name what that was, but there's a certain distance you have to cover for that, so that we don't get arrow slap and stuff like that. Also, how you pull, the technique, where you put your actual anchor point, the style of pull that you want to go for. Is it Mediterranean? Is it like Asian pull? Is it something else? As you find one general area, you kind of stick with it, but just kind of do the more standard approach. Understanding even like arrows themselves are just as important. The weight of the arrow, the length of the arrow, the kind of like fletching you want to go for, the kind of knock you want to produce, the weight of the actual head. They seem over complex, but I guarantee you, after a little bit of research on looking at YouTube, there's tons of videos out there breaking everything down for you. And once you get that, it's pretty fun, really exciting. I research in terms of like local archery fields out there. I just shoot in my backyard because I don't do long distance pull. I just shoot maybe like 20 feet or less. So I'm relatively in control of that, and I have a net for it. I don't shoot and draw high. I draw low. So that kind of stuff helps. And prepping for the zombie apocalypse. Right, exactly. Speaking of that, I wonder if that book is here. Funny you should say that, Paul McKay. So this book, I'm sure some of you guys maybe know this one. Max Brooks made this book. It's called The Zombie Survival Guide. Now, I bought this book in 2003. 2003. When did this even come out? 2003 is when it first came out. This is the first edition. It's unfortunately ripped. But I bought this when it first came out, and I saw it at the bookstore because back in 2000s, mid 2000s, I was what, 23, 24 years old. I was super into zombie films. Um, and this is, yes, I believe he did write World War Z. But this is before they were making those like really more kind of modern day zombie films where they're all running around like Walking Dead, not Walking Dead, I'm sorry, 28 Days Later, or like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, from Zack Snyder. That kind of stuff came out in like 2008. Before that, I was really into zombie films from the originals, of course, of Romero. George Romero's Night, Dawn and Day, Return, all that kind of stuff. We're not Return, Day of the Dead. But they're all really good zombie films. And then, of course, in the 80s, there were other kind of like Return of the Living Dead as well, too. Were all great zombie films as well. Zombie, which was the Italian version, was also awesome. So I was really big into zombie movies for a long time. And then once the Dawn of the Dead remake came out, I enjoyed it, but it just didn't click the same way. When Walking Dead came out, I enjoyed the first season, and then it kind of fell off, as everyone else kind of did as well, too. Uh, that explosion of zombie movies and interest was so massive. And when it came out, I was kind of in the camp of like, I'm kind of already over it. I had that moment for myself where I really enjoyed zombie flicks and zombie, kind of like lore and maybe even fantasy. So books like this were always kind of funny to me because I always imagined like, what would I do in a zombie apocalypse, right? How would I prepare for it? And I remember I used to create these like fantasy stories about ideas of what would happen, like where would be my, kind of stations where I would make caches and stuff like that. Where would be like safety zones? It was just fun to think about. Weird fantasy stuff like that, I guess. Name is Quinta, nice rookie. It's Blake Griffin. This guy, he was an amazing dunker. But no, Book Knight, very nice. Dominators. I'm gonna put this one over here. Dylan Brooks. Again, I just sleeve these prisms. Slam Dunk comes out next month on the 3rd. Very nice. December, Halo Gear? Well, obviously December. It's already November right now. Some person is asking, you bought the first anime Bible and you liked it. Will there be a second book? Yes, there will be. And as per usual, I'll answer that by saying that it will be coming out hopefully sometime mid-summer or fall of next year. Second book. How have I not read Berserk? Well, the thing is, I knew of Berserk when it first came out, and I actually was looking into it, but for some reason, I just didn't invest. I had so many other things I was looking into, and that I never really got into the Berserk series. I always enjoyed it. Like when I first saw Guts, the character, for the first time with a giant sword, I was all in. But the more I started not watching, but reading the mangas and the comics, I just didn't have the time to just really immerse myself. So I was into so many other things that I just didn't do so. I would like to get back into it. I tried watching some of the animes that came out. Vagabond I have. And for some, I couldn't also get into the animes of Berserk. A lot of it is because, again, it's not because of the art. It's mostly because a lot of the animes that they are producing today is mostly in like 3D anime, which I am not a fan of. Some of you might agree with me, some of you may not. But I am not a huge fan of some of the 3D anime stuff they do to make it look 2D, but using 3D assets. It still looks too, processed. It looks too floaty. There's no gravity and weight to it in terms of the animation and movement. It just doesn't feel good. In terms of like, the 97 Berserk, yeah, I'll check that one out, the old version. But even like now, with a lot of the animes coming out, even from some of the movies, I don't know if anybody watched that recent Dragon Ball Z Super movie. I didn't see that one, the newest one. But there was one that came out before that one. That was animated 2D, but it had elements of 3D assets in those kind of like more high rate speed of action, which you couldn't really discern what was what, and that was fine. But in the newest one, everything was all 3D assets, and I didn't like the way it looked in the trailer. This one also is giddy. People like this one a lot as well too. But it's not a prism. Not a numbered card. Here, rated rookie. It's got a print line on there right there. I don't know if you can see that. These kind of print lines happen like this, and that can affect the quality. Looking at centering and print lines. Numbered though. Broly, yes, Halo Gear, that's the one. The recent one was it Superhero, something like that? It looked kind of bad to me. I didn't check it out. Let's see if I miss any other questions here. I know, Nessa, you're asking about Berserk. I kind of talked about that. Contract with God by Will Eisner. That one I haven't read. I'll have to check that one out as well too. I'll admit I haven't looked at a lot of Will Eisner stuff. I'm familiar with a few of his properties, but I've never really fully read a lot of them. Again, I'm still looking for certain players that I really like. Guys like Simons, Lillard, the Portland Blazers, Trailblazers, who I follow. So if I can get some of those cards just for my personal collection. Some of these, like I said, I might grade, but I'm not opening these to sell them. I open these because it's just personal collection. I like having them. Yeah, I actually did watch Jujutsu Kaisen. I thought it was pretty good. It just was a bit too cloned from other things. But you know what? Animes and mangas do this all the time, right? From Dragon Ball to Naruto, right? From that to then also other things like Demon Slayer, to then also Jujutsu Kaisen. They use similar tropes, archetypes, character types within all those things. But we all like that, right? And so why would you go away from a recipe that works? And so it works pretty well. The animation was strong. I liked some of the designs of the characters. The beginning was a good entry. It wasn't so hard to like get into the series, because certain animes and series you have to like really stick with it a little bit until you can actually really feel it out. Like for me, even when it comes to like Demon Slayer, I liked it, but it took me a minute to really get into the feel of it. The Chainsaw Man one I haven't seen yet, Daniel. It's been on my list. I want to check it out. I've been seeing some clips on like Instagram from people posting stories. It looks interesting. I've known of it. I've seen the series of images and illustrations from like different cons. I've never looked at the actual comic, but I do want to watch it. I'm in the middle right now of Mob Psycho, the third season, Mob Psycho 100. So that's the one I'm watching right now. I did watch Andor. I watched the most recent episode, and I do like it quite a bit. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a look. I think aesthetically, cinematography wise, design to the story to the characters, I think it's done actually. It's probably one of the best produced Star Wars side series that Disney has now done at this point. More base. Greg Brown the third. He's actually, I think, out on an injury or something. This is also scuffed up like crazy, but this one's nice to have. Kaminga, it's a nice one. Dominator's card, Jalen Brown, numbered, very nice. No weird lines, centering looks good. Mario, in terms of like hockey cards, growing up in the 90s, I don't know if you guys grew up in the 90s as a kid, but well, I'm sure some of you guys did. But the 90s was an amazing time for sports because you always had each of the sports had these amazing icons. And honestly, even today, we had them as well too, right? From like soccer, football to hockey to whatever cases, basketball as well too. We have amazingly notable players today in a much more amount of people. But back in the 90s, they were like singular, that represented the sport. And so, growing up in the 90s in basketball, for me, of course, Jordan was my guy that I watched all the time. So back in like 93, 94 is when I used to watch Jordan in before high school. I was probably in my 8th grade, 7th grade, and I grew up watching Jordan, watching the live games, From basketball to, let's see, even like hockey, of course, everybody knew Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky. Everybody followed that guy. Everybody knew him. So of course, we knew that he was the greatest of all time. He's considered the first one to have that label, GOAT, for hockey. And that's the thing. It's like, I mean, did I really watch hockey? No, but we knew these people, right? In soccer we had Pele. For football we had Joe Montana. Or in baseball we had guys like Jose Canseco or Cal Ripken or whatever the case is. And all these players in the '90s were the ones that I also knew because they were cultural icons, right? Um, but today, do I specifically follow all these sports? No. I mean, basketball I actually quite enjoy. Football I like as well too. Um, I actually find every sport interesting to watch. So I would definitely watch hockey. I'll definitely watch soccer and even different sports of Olympics and all that kind of stuff. But I don't necessarily follow them specifically. Yeah, exactly, Nestor. And of course, soccer or football, as the world knows it as, is actually way more popular as a world sport compared to here in the U.S. It's the most popular sport. I mean, if you look at some of the soccer players out there, guys like Ronaldo and stuff like that, they have way more popularity and followings than any NBA or NFL player, in the states. Um, yeah, is Andor better than Mandalorian? They're different. Mandalorian is a very good kind of like easy to consume fast food, but in a good way of Star Wars because it still hits that same kind of quality of cinematography and production that I think the Star Wars universe has. Andor is definitely more of a mature, kind of a political heist kind of drama, which I really enjoy as well too. So they both hit the same calibers of production, but they definitely lean towards two types of audiences, which I think both can still enjoy. But they're not better than the other. I think they fit within the universe really well together. A lot of the other ones though are kind of like honestly, most of them have always been enjoyable. But I think at the level of caliber, those two have been the best. So Sonic is asking, excuse me, any advice and tips on learning how to draw the human figure in foreshortening perspective poses? I would honestly say getting into the pose yourself is important. Meaning, take your own references for it. See the multiple different effects that can happen. If you set up let's say your camera phone on like say on a it could be on a tripod and you pose yourself real simply, even just simple things of like arm stretching out, right? And if my hand is this close to the camera, how much scale difference is there from here to my head? If I go closer, how much variation and change is there from there? If I go further back, and I also then shift my arm left, right, up, and down, do your own observations, right? Research in that way is important. If you look for this imagery online, you might find some stuff, but you're going to be sitting there most of the time just looking for things and not actually acting on observing. Of course, drawing it is important, but I think going into the side of observation and really trying to figure out how things work from you producing the actual research, I think would also be even smarter, in my opinion. If I was in your shoes, that's what I would be doing. Base cards. Let's see how it's away for now. And Wiggins rookie. Ooh, Scotty Barnes rookie. This one also has been relatively popular. This set actually has been pretty good so far in terms of what I've pulled, what I've liked. It's given me some strong cards here. I'm going to open up one more box after this one here. Have I read Death Note or Bakuman? I have not. I know of those, but I haven't really watched them or read them. What video games do I play right now? Well, I'm actually in the middle of still playing a little bit of Battlefield, the World War one. I picked it up cheap on my PS5 to stream. So that's the collection of the Donruss. Let me sleeve some of this stuff right now real quickly before we move on to the next pack. And we can keep talking. But I'm looking forward for the new God of War coming out. That should be out relatively soon. I wanted to sleeve. Let's see. The All-Stars, Kyrie, James Harden. Keep these in sleeves in the moment. This Hollow from Anthony Davis. Not numbered. Lakers are just... they're dropping the ball. They only won 1 game out of 6. But this guy's pretty amazing. Is that the sleeve of the card? It's got like a little dimple on there. Let's put that there for now. I don't know if I want to sit and sleeve all these right now. I'll move on to opening more packs. Let's put these away for the moment. This one is so far some of the best pulls. Is a autographed card from Jalen Green, rookie, numbered. Scotty Barnes also, no, not numbered. Cade, rookie card. Nice Josh Hart. A lot of good numbered cards. Tons of base, but that's okay. To be expected. Let's put these off to the side for the moment. I'll leave this here. I have one more box I want to open up. And afterwards, if we're able to sketch and draw a little bit, we'll try. Nestor, in terms of the team I'm following at the moment, is the Portland Trail Blazers. That's where I grew up. It's the team that I used to watch as a kid. And right now, they're doing pretty damn well. They're playing today at 7, which I plan to watch. Goku versus Saitama, which is stronger? Based on the world rule of what's established in the animes, it would suggest that Saitama is stronger. But they don't belong in the same world. They belong in 2 different universes, you know. So the rules don't really apply the same way, right? So who's to say? They do have really good rookies right now. Let's look. Which is why I'm looking for the Shaden Sharp, which they don't haven't produced NBA cards for him just yet because he only just started. I know he has a draft card out there, but I'm looking forward to when they release cards from him because I hope he sticks with the Portland Blazers. So this is another box set from the same company, Panini, but this is a Prism pack. There should be 1 autograph card in here. 12 prisms, 10 packs, 9 cards. How's it going, Robert? Welcome. AD also supposedly gets hurt very easily. He's like glass, as they say. Let's see, another question here is, you're just a casual doodler. Any suggestions on exercises or shape studies you would recommend a beginner add to the repertoire? Well, of course, a lot of things I suggest in my own studies is the use of line and muscle memory exercises, from the circles and ellipses to the basic line shapes, but drawing cubes is a big part. Lots of cubes, right? So you can get the cubes in terms of getting the sense of proportion of the cube consistent as you have a certain type of sizing, but then also the idea of being able to actually control perspectives, the line of convergences really well. But before you even really do that, you got to get that muscle memory up into play. So using a lot of pen, exercises of line and circles, building again the hand control into the pen work. All right. So look up, like, you know, you'll find a lot of YouTube videos on demos that I'll do, and also other people that do it, and a lot of exercises are out there as well. And of course, the book, you know, that is out there with the Dynamic Bible offers that information as well too. And in the future, if you're interested in the class, you can jump in on that anytime you want. Jay Decker's asking, do I have a watch collection by any chance? You know, I actually really like watches also. There isn't a thing I don't have interested in some type. And I do find watches to be beautiful. My main watch that I wear right now is, God, where is it? Actually, I don't have it on me right now. But the watch that I actually always wanted was a Panerai. The Panerai watch line is super luxury. And I probably would never afford one. I'm not really interested in like Rolexes and stuff like this, but I would like to have a Panerai one day. Gray on green. Martin, DeMar Rosen. There's a nice Prism Joel. Not numbered. Number 2 though. Corners seem okay. There's Halliburton. Not numbered. Another base and a rookie card. Again, some of these I will sleeve up. Right, so you're saying you're sticking with the Nuggets for this season? They look pretty good. But it's still so early. Like, I have faith for Portland to take it a bit further, but who knows if they'll maintain. Best Korean Jesus is saying, I plan on jumping into one of the classes with your friend. You've been doing the line in circles, but you never thought of the cubes. Yeah, cubes are definitely what you want to stick with more if you can. Just in the beginning, just to get used to it. It might come up really wonky and not that strong, but stick with it. Okay, use observation. So if you have some sort of like box like this, hold it in front of you, okay, and draw from these, from life. Don't just imagine the cube, draw from what you're seeing from the cube. So you can then see the angles of the lines, positions of where the planes are, turn it, rotate it, put in different positions, and draw from a cube of observation. Paul, you're asking or saying, seeing an old CGMA video trailer I was doing, demoing. Yeah, that was like 10 years ago. Those old videos are a long time ago. Okay, got some interesting stuff in here. Let's go to some of the base. There's a Portland card right there. That's a Lillard. Anything with Dame I can get would be great because I don't have any cards of Dame. So this one I will definitely keep. Rookie card Primo. Not numbered. Another rookie. Put this over here for now. Coach. Rookies I'll pile, and these ones I'll sleeve. Not numbered. I don't have any Luka cards right now, Rasuo. I don't. I would like to have one at some point. And Robert, you're saying you recently watched the recent webinar from Schoolism. Yeah. I'm assuming that you have a subscription to Schoolism. If people don't know what he's talking about, Schoolism did have a live 3-hour session kind of workshop, but it was only for people that subscribe through Schoolism that can have access to it. And it's not going to be public, so it won't be put out there on YouTube. I think it's going to be only available for the people on Schoolism for about 2 weeks, and then it's going to be taken down, from what I can understand. So, unfortunately, it was a fun demo. I think people enjoyed it, but it won't be necessarily coming out in the future. Clark. Even a base card, if I can get of some of these Portland players, I would like to get. Howard. Ooh, here's a signed card. That Lever. This is a player from back in the day. I've had some old cards of him before, but it's signed. So, but it's not numbered. That's interesting. It's the only autograph card I'm going to get, though. So, it's not exactly what I wanted. But not a really good jaw card either, Rasuo. I mean, I do have a jaw card. It's just not necessarily like the greatest. It's just a base that I opened up from a different pack. This is a jaw card that I opened up. LaMelo, I opened up base card. And I got a nice purple Prism of Anthony. And this is some NFL cards that I opened up. Cooper Cup. Here's a LeBron. A Wilt Chamberlain base. Need me a rookie card. Do I recommend any character design courses? Yes, I would recommend the one from the Concept Design Academy. That's based here in Pasadena, and it's taught by Kevin Chen. And right now, it's partnered up with somebody else as well too. But those character design classes from CDA are pretty strong. Kevin, in general, in my opinion, is a really amazing designer and figurative artist. And so his figure drawing classes are great too. But his character design class is awesome. And I believe he has two sections, like a character design one and a two. If anybody's taken a character design class from Kevin Chen, let us know what your thoughts are. Let's put this aside for now. I haven't done a lot of stuff with schoolism in the past, only a few handful of things. So, to do something with them for this round was pretty fun. I don't know how good their business model is. I mean, obviously, it must do well if they're sustaining all these subscriptions of people. But I do hope the value that people are paying are worth it. I don't know. For me, educationally, I always feel like, especially if I was a student today, I would really need to have a lot of interaction. Like student to teacher interaction of feedback and conversation, that kind of stuff. With the schoolism format, here's a Luca Prism mindset, not numbered. Purple Jordan Clarkson, not numbered. Dwayne Wade, Evan Mobley. So I don't know if I would ever really go the route of a schoolism school if I was a student today. I probably would be using primarily of CGMA, CDA, and Brainstorm to do a lot of my education. And then, of course, visiting some local colleges and schools. So I would probably pad my foundations and disciplines at local colleges like the Art Center and stuff like that. And then I'll go to the local kind of schools like Brainstorm, CDA independently to do some of the intermediate and advanced classes. The centering on this is pretty bad. So my classes I have two now. I have mainly online classes at the moment, which is going to go live next week. And it's available if you go to my website to register. But I'm also offering in-person classes in November as well. But it's local to Pasadena. So if you're in the LA area, it's a possibility for you. Some more prisms over here. Interesting card. My screen. A rookie, and a rookie card. These rookie cards you just want to hold on to because you don't know where those players will end up. Yeah, Russell was saying the brainstorm was a good experience from your attendance to it. I taught there for a little bit, mainly doing the mentorships. I never really taught a full class there, but they mostly have now converted online only. I still prefer some of these schools to have some sort of physical in-person experience, which is something that I personally can't do because I can't, pay for a facility. But if you're an actual school, I would say holding on to some sort of physical component would have been great, which CDA did, but Brainstorm did not. Evan Mobley, David Robinson. Oh my gosh. Whoa, that is a really damaged card on that rookie. There's a giant scratch on that. Severely dented into it. That's horrible. I have a rookie David Robinson card from '92 that I opened up in a pack from a couple years ago. That's nice. Oh yeah, I do like basketball a lot. I don't like play it every day in a team, but I enjoy watching it. I very much enjoy shooting the basketball, but not just basketball. I like sports in general. And then, of course, the hobby of collecting cards I've done as a kid since I was young. And the kind of cards I collected were sports cards and also comic cards. In sports, I used to primarily collect baseball cards when I was younger. Some of them, some of those old '92 cards I bought as boxes, sealed boxes online on eBay, and they weren't necessarily like the most expensive. Like a box was like $80 to $100 for 30 packs or something like that. So it was very worth the money. This is before it kind of exploded, and so some of those boxes now are worth like several $100s. It's a nice CJ base. Okay, Trent, nice. LeBron fireworks hologram is number one, first card. Washington. Okay, Johnson rookie. Get these sleeved up also. So far, I like that other box a lot more. Don Optic card. This one. This is the first box that I opened up. Just some of the cards in there I just feel like were much better looking, but also just a bit more rare. Oh yeah, it's crazy. The card market has exploded. Not just only in sports, but also like in things like Marvel cards and of course obviously the Pokemon stuff too. Jess is asking, any projects that I'm working on lately? Oh, several. Of course, here's our base, LeBron. Oh, there's a interesting color right there. I don't know if that's considered gold, but we'll see. One of the books I'm working on that some of you may be aware of, here's Steph, is that the fantasy natural history book that I'm putting together. So I'm hoping to print that at some point in the future. I'm working with somebody right now who does a lot of book publishing, and he's very interested in working with me on a book at some point, whenever I'm available. He's ready to go. He initially pitched to me this idea of maybe producing a sketchbook of my own again. The last time I put together an art book of just sketches was back in like 2015, and I self-published that. It was a collection of like 300 pages of just sketches. And since then, all the books I've ever produced have been like comics or educational books. So he wanted me to work with him to publish another book in the future, and he recommended another giant art book. So I like the idea of doing that. Terrence Davis, number 3 of 20. This one is pretty solid. Don't know the player that well, but the centering on that is pretty nice. That looks okay. A little bit to the right, but being a gold and numbered 3 of 20, low number. Player, it's like, with a different player, this be worth quite a bit, but that I'm still going to secure. But other than a sketchbook, I wanted to produce maybe that kind of fantasy natural history book. I'm going to pitch that to him as well too, and see what he says. He says pretty much anything. Like whatever I want to make with him, I'll do it. Robert, you're saying you've been chipping away at some world building projects. Wondering if you have any advice you could share. Another loaded question. A lot of stuff I can say about world building. Let me just put these away for a second. Rookie Jim Springer, a magic, nice base card. When it comes to world building, you've already started. As you said, you're chipping away at the thing, and it's no easy task. World building. You might think, well, what is world building to begin with? Basically, it's like creating the rules of how a world will work. This is numbered as well too, 112, 150. And based on those rules, you can then generate a potentially a culture, a society, of some type that belongs to those rule sets, right? Now, when I say rules, I'm talking about just how the world works based on certain parameters of, let's say, like societal kind of cultural statuses and religions, maybe like political systems, transportation, technology, materials, food sources, even fuel. All those things can be thought about. Now, in world building, you can go to that minute degree of information of detail or just more general, you know? So the more kind of detailed you are, the more specific you can be about storytelling within, because you understand how things will work again, like I said. But a lot of people won't necessarily go that deep in many situations. But it's all based on, it's up to you in terms of how far you want to go with it. Just the same personal experience, in your opinion, can help in world building. Sure, absolutely. Traveling, meeting people, visiting different cultures and worlds, not worlds, but countries, can help you in terms of navigating how to build such places, right? It's not really writing a story, though. You're not necessarily writing a story with characters and the ups and downs of all that kind of stuff. You're setting the environment, right? And within that, and why I like building a world first is that it sets the general visual look, style guide, the cultural systems, all that stuff I just talked about. And then you can place in a character and also a story type within. And what kind of story do you want to tell at that point, right? Is it a coming of age story? Is it a revenge story? Is it a horror story? It could be genre based as well too. Is it? There are many kind of story archetypes. So once you have the world, you can then find the story you want to tell, and then you generate and design the individual people or characters that will obviously kind of navigate through that storyline, right? Base Nikolik, Nikola Jokic. No other Lillard or Blazer players so far, even at the base level. He's a nice Luca. Fearless purple. Not numbered. Jaren Jackson. More base. Let's get those other ones sleeved. But yeah, in terms of that whole world building, again, going back to it, it is very much in your control as to how far and deep you go within. But I would suggest you do a lot of research, not just draw. Sitting there and just drawing, the world in which you want to create is a daunting task. A lot of that stuff can be solved by just writing it down. And then you kind of isolate the parts you want to visualize. So if you're just kind of going through a sketchbook saying that I want to build a world, you have to think about the animals and the characters and the people, the civilians and technology and the vehicles. There's just so much that you want to create. It's overwhelming. So once you understand all those elements and you just write them down at first, then you can start to really kind of pick and choose what it is you want to visualize, right? Now, there's world building, which is the working components of that world, but that doesn't necessarily fit to the style guide, okay? So you can build the rules of the world first, then understand by creating, let's say, like style guide mood boards, researching that kind of imagery and stuff, like see what you want to parallel with. What does my, world now look like stylistically? If you're making a comic, you might have a certain look to it, and you have a certain artist you can be researching to say, I want to, maybe like match up to. You can say, I'm trying to make an animation. Not to say you would actually make one, but you can actually, produce work that is supposed to represent that kind of process of an animation piece. So either way, there are many options of what you could do there, in terms of that part. This is the last pack. Before I open that, let me just throw away some of these leftovers. And before I open that one, let me just kind of organize a little bit, because we've had some pretty good things in the last break so far. We have 2 autographs. The Jalen Green one's a pretty good one. Nice gold card, numbered 3/20. It's also another solid one. A couple of nice base rookies, Scotty Barnes, and I had another one from Cade Cunningham, and a couple of good prisms overall. So another good run, much better rounds of openings than I've had in the last couple of boxes actually. So Demansh is asking, did I sketch my comic with pencil before hot inking it? I did not. The blacksmith comic that I produced. Let me see if there's anything in here. Nothing thick, just a silver and 1 hollow. What I did first was I thumbnailed the book twice. I thumbnailed it very small, just to get the idea of the story breakdown. dialogue, how many panels per page, simple little scribbles for thumbnail the panels. And then I thumbnailed it again, made the pages a little bit larger, and then I thumbnailed the panels in terms of composition, camera, all that kind of stuff, placement of the bubbles, all that kind of within. From that secondary state of storyboard, I then went to my full pages. The full pages, because I've storyboarded them twice, I knew what I wanted from them in terms of the shot, in terms of the composition, and also the imagery. And so I can now just go in there straight with ink and draw it. So I didn't pencil it and ink it. I drew it straight in with a brush pen. Cool, Robert. I'm glad you were doing that. Jay Decker's asking, how should someone approach getting their own art style? You've heard some say that to copy artists you like, and others say that you shouldn't copy at all. Well, this is a common question I've gotten many times. First, let's just say it is about finding a style. I mean, when is it important to find one? I would say it's important to find one when you're actually trying to, like, let's say, create a product of your own, a story or a world. So let's say you're making a comic or a series of illustrations or a storybook. A style set's important there because it's coming off of your signature. It's your voice, it's your visual voice. So it's gonna, connect to your visual look and branding. So if somebody looks at your drawing and painting, they'll know who that was from, right? So style matters at that point. If you're working for a company, right? Let's say an animation company, a game studio, movie, film industry, your style will not matter. Your skill set matters because you got to be able to adapt to that style guide that's being produced for that particular project. So your adaptability is really the key thing. So if I want to make my own stuff and have my own style, how would I find it? As you have said, copying is the first step you do. You got to consume. You have to consume to be able to understand the taste of many things within style, right? If I ask you what's your favorite food, well, if you never really tasted a whole variety of food, you might only just say one thing, because maybe in your entire life all you ate was spaghetti, right? So maybe you'll just say I like spaghetti. That's all you've eaten. But if you've eaten the whole, a menagerie of different kind of food sources, you'll be able to isolate specific ones you really like. You can also then kind of like weigh them in terms of comparisons of what you like more or less. Style set's no different to that. The more you visually consume, the more you also then visually then copy and produce, you're able to pick up on certain specific tastes of things you like about them. Then as also the cook, because being the artist is not only about tasting the food, you have to now create the food. Being the artist, you got to create as well too. So as you then taste upon those visual interests and visual guides, you're able to kind of nitpick on some parts you really like the most, and you mix and mash things together as a recipe and formulate your own taste from that. But it's not original. It's built off of necessary ingredients that we all as artists are basically interacting with, right? Techniques of drawing, perspective, anatomy, figure, life drawings, materials, all those things. Those are the ingredients or tool sets that we have to use. But all the artists are using them. But how we then amalgamate stuff and mix things together comes to some sort of like outcome that could be somewhat fresh, not original. But you can now build off of the taste of others because there's a series of roadways and paths from different cultures and people and types of audiences and type of storylines you want to generate. And so there's specific kind of genres of styling that come into place as well too, that we all kind of like recognize, right? Standards within our industry. But that's been built over many decades of time in our industry. So from that, you can either follow those kind of like same pathways, and you can find ways of also kind of navigating away from it. It may not be as successful because people tend to like what they like, which is more the standard approaches and stuff, right? But as an artist, you can also try to find a way to break the rules stylistically. But you're the one responsible trying to find it, right? I hope that makes sense. Whenever I bring in analogies and stuff like that, I don't know if that really makes sense or not. If it's even appropriate to say that. There's a hollow. Paint markers are getting you in trouble. Maybe because it's hard to control. I don't know. You think a style is an evolutionary process, as Robert's saying, trying not to force it too much. Yeah, you certainly can't force it, but you certainly should be involved in being able to curate, as much as possible. Demunch is asking, does my comic always turn out the way you want it to be? Because you say you go straight to ink. Close enough. That's all that matters. It's close enough. It's not about perfection. It's about being able to achieve what's necessary for the job. Most days saying you tend to get the talk from Marshall at Lightbox this year. One of you guys mentioned having art parents, which is what Marshall said. How do you avoid copying mistakes other artists may make? Interesting question. How do we even discern that, right? How do we even discern mistakes that other artists may be making at the time? Now, are those artists making mistakes in their youth? Because if they are, you would not be able to perceive those mistakes because you haven't seen their work at their youth. Most of the stuff you're looking at is in the contemporary current things you're seeing today. So if you're seeing mistakes that they're making currently, hopefully you can be aware of those things. And what are some of the common mistakes? It could be about not just technique, not about just your working method and discipline. It could also be about, the balance of life. Are some of these artists really balancing life properly? Are they only just go, go, go work? Or are they also doing this? Sitting, relaxing, enjoying hobbies that they just enjoy to do, right? I could be sitting here in front of you guys just working away. Like, I gotta work on this project and I'll be, sketching with you guys. I did that this morning. I could be another live stream and draw for another 3 or 4 hours. I could, but I kind of want to just open cards because I like this stuff. This is a hobby of mine. It makes me feel good, stress free, So, it's an interest of mine as well too. So of course I want to go to the things I like. I'm not gonna feel guilty about it because I can draw later. I can draw tomorrow if I want to, right? I can work tomorrow if I need to. So it's that situation of mindset. I think it's something that to be mindful of too in terms of how artists approach and the mistakes that they make. Not just on technique. Oh, that person's perspective is off. Oh, that person's anatomy is not that great. Okay, fine. Those technical things can be improved over time. But the mindset, how they balance life, is not so easily repairable or adjustable. Sometimes people are not even aware of it. So I think if you're able to see it from the outside perspective and they're not aware of the thing, you might be able to pick up on something that you want to avoid. Okay? Dave, you just opened up some Chronicles basketball cards. Not so good. I saw boxes of those Chronicles. I didn't pick them up. I picked up a case of Scores football NFL cards from Panini. They were also kind of so-so. Out of that entire pack, I only grabbed 2 cards that I liked. A base Cooper Cup. Actually, it's not base. This is a yellow, but and 1 Prism, which was numbered from Jonathan Allen, a Washington's player. I don't know. If I go back to NFL, I'll probably go back to the Prisms. The Prisms packs have been great, but I really like this one. This optic line was really nice. This is my first time opening this particular box from this year, this season, 21-22. But this was a great one. I've opened several of these already, which is this current collection, and so far they've been pretty good. But man, this was a really nice one, and this was cheaper. Yes, you get a lot of cards for sure, Dave, but they were not quality. Design-wise, they don't look that great either. So, as you're saying, Dave, custom card series, I would like to do that. Create fighting characters or creatures and stuff like that, and give it the kind of Marvel character score stat sheet kind of stuff. I've always wanted to generate stuff like this. It's a thought in mind in terms of what I want to do in the future, because I've always wanted to make a art book as well too. But a friend of mine already did this recently for Lightbox. He put together an art book which was a Street Fighter kind of I don't know, art book I guess, with a bunch of characters that are his robots, and he posed them and he presented them like a Street Fighter kind of character sheet, and it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. But I want to do one with cards. Well, let me put these away real quickly. Maybe we can sketch real fast. It's already been about 1 hour and 20. I'll maybe sketch for about half an hour, and then we'll call it good. Alejandro's asking, can you recommend any world building books? Because I'm interested in getting to know more about the comic I'm starting to create and planning to do. Not a lot of world building books out there. The only few that I would recommend are books that kind of give you the insight behind the world, but it doesn't really give you the development of it. It just shows you the behind the scenes of, the components and the pieces that exist within that world. As an example, the movie from I would say early 2000s or something like this was King Kong. King Kong had a really amazing art book, and it was made by Weta. Weta made this art book for King Kong, and it was basically, again, a natural history book, similar to what I like to be able to do with my own natural history book, but theirs was a bit more specific, where it was just about the individual animals. Okay, Where mine is more about a journey of a journal of one guy going through this island and collecting all the flora and the fauna of that unnatural, I guess, natural world. That's fantastical. But in the King Kong world, there's all these creatures, insects and dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff. But the way they kind of set it up was pretty amazing, in terms of showing the predators and the prey and how the world works. But it's all natural, right? But in terms of like more of a cultural system, I would say another one would be maybe like the obvious one that people tend to go for a lot, which is a skillful huntsman. That particular book, which came out in the early mid 2000s under Scott Robertson's Design Studio Press, is one of the early examples of a concept art book. And it still holds true today. It was really well done, and it's actually a pretty good, solid world building kind of art book because it kind of shows you how to developing all the characters, to the environments, to the elements and the props of the world itself. It's still relatively shallow. It doesn't go as deep as I'm talking about now, but it's still pretty good. So I reckon I told people earlier that I very much felt want to extend this section over here. So we ended last time with a stream where I was doing the werewolf thing, and I wanted to add one more piece right here, which concluded the werewolf as a full body. I don't like leaving things to just a head, just a head study. I like going into the full body study also. So I wanted to kind of cap it with that here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So obviously I'll be going with like a werewolf character. I want to have him facing more to us, meaning his head's gonna be turned towards the camera. I'm thinking of doing like an up angle shot. So his shoulder come down over here, arm over here, body this direction, foot, head over here. So what I just did right now was give myself opposing established positioning. Okay, so I told myself a camera angle, where his shoulder was, where his arm coming down, and my hand is going through the motions of placement. Now, I'm not physically making points on the dotted page, all right? But I'm able to visually keep in track of where things are. So I know that the shoulder is going to be up here. Now, I don't know the design of the werewolf. I'm just going to create that on my own right now. And do I have an expected outcome of a look that I want to go for? No. I just create as I do it. But the thing is, it's not really so important the way it looks. It's about being able to just explore and have fun, right? So if I was designing an actual werewolf character for like a game or something like that, then I would do a lot of thumbnails and iterations, show the client and go back and forth. But in this situation, it's just a book that produces a bunch of drawings and sketches, and I can make it whatever I want it to be. If I'm concerned about, well, what if it doesn't look very good? I'm fairly confident that I'm still going to like it because I just enjoy doing it. Could it be made better? Sure. But I'm not concerned about that. Dave is saying you think world building will be kind of hard to teach. It is a lot to deal with, and not everybody's prepared skill wise to handle it. I've taught a lot of world building at Art Center. I've had many students who do independent projects with me who would build worlds, and they go through a lot of in depth detail, and I coach them and guide them on that stuff. It is fun, but it is very labor intensive, and it's not for everybody. Because the thing about world building is it's not just about drawing and painting. A large amount of it is also about researching, understanding how things just work too. Let's have his arms come out like this direction, elongated forearm. Have his leg come up here. So as you notice, I don't necessarily start with the head and work my way down. I'm just kind of starting where I think would feel nice overlapping wise. Let's have the leg coming towards the camera here, towards the knee. I'm gonna give it a long tail. Movement of line, looking for gesture, action. Having the foot coming towards the camera here. The other shoulder coming down. kind of a more dynamic kind of hand posing. As the other arm comes down this direction into the ground plane. David also saying the Dark Souls Bloodborne art book. Cool, nice one. Sorry, I missed a bunch of questions here. Um, um, EC is asking, was there ever a point in my past where that worry would have led me to do things like undersketching and thumbnailing? Or was the fun of with pen a mentality pretty consistent for you over time? No, I did a lot of under sketching. There was a lot of concern and self doubt and a fear behind sketching when I was younger. Because it was for me more about than the outcome, right? That it needed to look a certain way. It had to be controlled, and if I wasn't doing, certain things of anatomy or a form or a right, and I'm not talking about my youth of being a kid either. I'm talking about being in my 20s and 30s, and going to colleges and schools and even working. It took a very long time to have this sense of more confidence behind the work. It took many decades to get to that point. And of course, I'm not going to come off here saying that I have a complete absence of, you know, the feeling of this, not just concern, again, the fear behind like, what if it doesn't work? What if it's not going to go that way? It's just that I can recognize them, but I'm not necessarily running away from them. To be honest with you, I actually like the feeling of not being sure about how this is going to work. That it may not be that great, and how do I then solve it? How do I problem solve it in the moment in front of you guys? I've learned over the many years now to come to embrace that feeling instead of using, I guess, having that feeling as an opposition that I have to fight in some way. But it took a while to get that kind of mentality. And in the beginning, it's so difficult to imagine how do I even just overcome that, you know? But again, that tinge of feeling of like, nervousness is still going to be there. Not right now. Not right now, it's not. As soon as I start drawing, it goes away. But in the very beginning, maybe not so much here, but especially let's say like, in big events or something like this, there's going to be a bit of a butterfly. It's like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if that's going to be good. It will happen. It's very normal to feel that. And it's okay to feel it. Then what she's saying, as a beginner, it was so difficult for you to draw with a pen. Now you love it more than a pencil. Yeah, you begin to appreciate its challenge and also what it gives you. Dave is asking, what are my thoughts, if any, on Drawbox? I don't have a lot of opinions on it. I mean, it is what it is. It's just a guy who started a thing on, I think it was on Reddit or some other, platform, sharing his content and thoughts behind drawing and sketching. Which the guy who started Drawbox was a student of mine, and he went off on his own, did his thing, but do understand that he asked for permission. He asked me saying, would it be okay to do my own thing and share my content for free? And I said, do what you got to do, but make sure you recognize where it came from, but also take ownership of it. It's like kind of take it in a direction of your own. Don't just kind of just imitate what I've offered. Offer unique things about what you can do within this kind of medium of teaching. If it helps others, great. But if you're claiming it as your own thing, I mean, I would have a bit of a problem with that. But the thing is, I don't claim this as my own either. It's like this is something that I've continued as a legacy from my own mentor. So I recognize him every time I teach a class. I bring him up, saying he was one of the original creators for this mentality of how we sketched. He's not necessarily the originator of these techniques, but he's one of the first to be able to combine the elements together and to be able to label it as dynamic sketching. So as long as it's being done, I have no issues. For a Dropbox to exist, and as long as it helps others, and even if they don't know where it comes from, or they don't know me or Norm, at the end of the day, if they have a sense of growth in their own personal skill sets, and that person was able to help them on that, good. You know. In terms of favorite werewolf movie, of course, American Werewolf in London is a fantastic film. The Rick Baker design for that werewolf is it's unmatchable in terms of like any other werewolf movie out there. But to be honest with you, I feel like there hasn't really ever been a solid werewolf movie. To be honest with you, like American Werewolf is great, but it shows its like age, since the '80s. But that's not what I'm talking about. In the contemporary last like maybe 15, 20 years, has there been a really solid like werewolf film? A little bit. Maybe like one would be Underworld, right? People seem to like that one, but it's not really so much about the wolves. It's more of the vampires, right? Then we had like the was that the damn it, Twilight series. But again, that was more about the vampires and less about the actual wolves. And Teen Wolf, which I actually happened to watch last night, is a good film too. But again, it's contained in its bubble of the '80s, and it works in that bubble. Um, and the design is pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I like the dad actually. When they reveal the dad in the bathroom scene, I kind of cracked up again because I forgot what he looked like, and he looks awesome as the old werewolf with the big puffy hair. Um, and I mentioned Dog Soldiers in a recent stream as well too. Somebody had asked this question as well. But to be honestly, you know what werewolf stands out to me is it's an old one as well too. The movie doesn't really hold up as well either, but it's still a pretty solid design. Is Monster Squad. The Monster Squad movie monsters in there, from the Frankenstein, Dracula to the Creature of the Black Lagoon, the Mummy, and also even the werewolf in that movie was an awesome set, in my opinion. Question here is when, how do you recommend jumping from felt tip pens to brush pens? There is no point when you would jump. You just do, right? You do it together in parallel. I would suggest you start, with the felt tip pen and then gradually bring in the brush pen. But there's no point of like jumping one to the other. I'm sure you understand that. It's got to be brought in at some point based on curiosity, but also as you get a sense of confidence within the felt tip pen, a general comfort, not a mastership, but a general comfort within. Wolf with the hell's his name? Why am I forgetting it? Jack Nicholson. That was a good one. It was fun. It wasn't a bad movie, but there's definitely a lot more vampire films than there are Dracula or werewolf films, right? And there's, I would say, a longer list for me in terms of better vampire films than there are werewolf films. But I do wish there was one really just like recently made solid werewolf movie. There's a lot of good '80s ones, maybe one or two '90s, but recently not a lot of werewolf stuff. Appreciate that, best Korean Jesus. World Road to Ninja. Never heard of that one. Nestor, the werewolf design from Harry Potter is an interesting one. Um, I'm actually going to argue that the Lycan design, which was well, there's two of them, right? There's uh, Sirius Black, who ends up just becoming a wolf, which I liked. Then there was the other instructor, I can't remember his name, who turns into an actual werewolf. I thought the transformation was pretty cool, but I just don't like how naked he was. He was like almost like hairless, and it looked a little bit odd. I wish they bulked him up a little bit in some areas in proportion. I liked his head, but there was a scene in which when he first turns and he chases Sirius, that running animation sequence always like I don't know, it just kind of makes me laugh a little bit. Um, Something about it. He looks a bit too coyote-ish to me. Not enough wolf. These eyes are going to have a dark set inside here. I like it when the wolves show so much of their gums and the teeth are kind of sticking out from there. I'm gonna use a lot of shadow and darks to kind of like refine this. So right now it's a lot of just kind of placement. I'm not really worried about too much detail work because I'm going to use a lot of shadow blocking in this one. Yeah, the leg is going to come down over here. This is all going to be in shadow as well. This is the heel coming up to the toes. The Howling definitely was a good film, actually, design-wise. Tyler was asking if I've seen The Cabinet of Curiosities. That was a recent series from Guillermo del Toro. I did watch it. I did like it. I thought it was pretty good. It's not iconic, but there are a couple of stories in there that I thought were pretty well executed. Not all of them, though. Pablo, it is the accordion book. So this has a series of images in here. I can start from the beginning real quickly here to kind of show you guys. This has the start from some of the warplanes, transition to like train to like dinosaurs. The reason why I drew dinosaurs here is because the Back to the Future vehicle DeLorean, and I think about time traveling and going to like the prehistoric times. Drew a mech on a series of boxes and cubes, more portraits of classical kind of antiquity look of styling, to studies from observation of artwork, sculptures, and then transition to the werewolf, which I did a stream yesterday on, or the other day. Now we're going to the werewolf now. Werewolves in video games, as Robert's talking about, is a whole different kind of like world for sure. Um, because there are some pretty solid ones. Like the one you're talking about from Bloody Roar is pretty awesome. I really like the werewolf design in the Capcom of Darkstalkers. That werewolf design is awesome. The Boys I enjoyed, as much as asking. I thought that was a pretty good series. It started really strong, and then it kind of like waned a little bit. Had a really weird stretch of stuff of story, and it kind of got good in the last season. Professor Lupin, that's what it was. Silver Bullet, I haven't seen that one before. 95, I'll check it out. The one in Van Helsing, interesting. I did see that, but I barely remember any werewolves in that one. I barely remember the movie Van Helsing. Let's see here. Um, Thank God Back to the Future never went prehistoric. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Time traveling movies are also pretty widely explored. The fascination of time travel, right? I mean, Back to the Future is probably one of the most iconic ones. And of course, there's Bill and Ted, and there's a time machine, and probably a few others. But let's give it just a bit more of a top mane of hair. Let's go down to the toes. Giving it like the paw feet from canines. I'm going to block in a lot of shadow shapes here. So when we use, let's try a different tool. See if I have anything here I can use. Maybe just a brush pen, but maybe these other felt tip pens. This one is soft tip. This is a Tombow brush pen felt tip. It's a little bit thicker. And we're going to go into these shadow shapes and punch them really hard. Beforehand, I was doing so much hatching. With this one, I'll hatch a little bit, but I really want to kind of play with these blockings, making it feel a bit more noir, graphical, if anything else. Now, I'm not using a brush pen or a fat marker because I don't want these shadow sides to feel way too flat. I think the strokes of line give it a bit of character and also a bit of noise inside these areas of information, which I think visually matches up better to the line. So I don't like using like really thick, heavy brush sets or markers to fill these in. If I use a brush pen, I start with a brush pen and finish with a brush pen. But in this situation, by using a felt tip brush pen, I don't use a brush to fill these areas in within. I also have a highlight tool I'm going to bring in to kind of extract some additional details. Relying upon the shadow shape and silhouette. So these shapes are going to use to oppose and create silhouetting. So the arm will come forward as the back side of the chest goes back, as I darken all this up. And it doesn't bother me to lose information. It could be a little bit of light hitting that deltoid right there. Of course, certain artists that do this really well are guys like Frank Miller to Mike Mignola that use that really heavy kind of contrasting shadow shapes. Bernie Wrightson does it really amazingly. And of course, Frank Frazetta. Not in a more simplistic graphically, but definitely using shadows very effectively. Butterfly Effect, that was a really good time travel movie. You're trying a hand-me-down, this is from Luke, zebra purple pen, and your hand and arm don't know how to draw with these pens, such as myself or Jungi. Um, I don't think I've used that zebra brush pen that you're talking about. I have a zebra one over here. This is a zebra brush pen, but this is a felt tip. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about. But in terms of these kind of felt tip brush pens, it needs just a lot of pressure control. So it's about just building up a muscle memory towards it. So the more you just play with it is really the ideal way of doing it. There's no actual formal training behind that tool or other tools you got to use to get better to get to that point. Honestly, just picking up and just using it more and more and more is the only way to get good with it. Tyler's asking, when you design something iconic like this, do you try to come up with something different or lean to pre-existing designs you enjoy? Both. So I want to use pre-existing designs to help invoke a thought or a memory for people of nostalgia. And it's useful. It's a powerful tool that we designers can use. Not only within pre-existing designs, but also pre-existing things just in general, in nature, right? So if I use certain animals or recognizable things that we can all have a connection to at least of experience of some type, it makes the readability of the design much faster. And communication in design is really the key of success of design, right? To make something also very iconic is to establish it in things that is also very kind of instinctually and culturally very significant. Um, so the choices and things that you choose to use for design work, both and in terms of like natural to also pre-existing design work, is all combined together. So I did definitely use them all. Quick tour of my world building book, if I can find it. Don't exactly remember where I put it. I'll look for it and see if it's around here somewhere. If it's close within vicinity, I'll grab it if I can. If it's not, if it's somewhere else, I'll maybe next time. I've shown it before. It's my little fantasy natural history book that kind of builds more natural things. But that's the book I would like to be able to print maybe sometime next year, or the year afterwards, 24. For next year, it's going to be the new Dynamic Bible, for sure. I like to get started on the next Blacksmith comic, my graphic novel. I like to get started on it. Possibly an art book, but I doubt it. I feel like it's going to be mostly just a Dynamic Bible. Because the next volume, I want it to be just a bit more content, more pages, more stuff. Because I'm probably not going to reintroduce the exercises in the second book. So the first book has all the exercises that you need. The second book will most likely include just 3 different subject matter. Do I ever use white pen or white paint for that kind of black highlight? I will, Damaj. I'm going to actually use it here. I'll show you what I use. Underneath the forearm. I'm going to block all this stuff out. And I'm going to use a combination of blocking and hatching to blend the edges, and also to promote this idea of like maybe hair or fur or texture. Underneath the body torso here. I'm going to punch it dark, but as I get into the underside of the belly, I'm going to lighten up the hatching a little bit inside. Almost as if there's a bit of an underlight coming up. So I'm not going to go solid black like a lot of the other graphic novelists like Nola or Miller will do. I'm also going to use a combination of hatching inside this region to adjust the values in different ways. So we go from dark to light. Is my first graphic novel available anywhere? I only sold it in person. I had a few copies I sold online, and I also did a Kickstarter for it years ago. But currently, it's not available anywhere else. I only have a few copies in stock left, and I only take it to shows currently. Into the future, if I do a reprint, hopefully it'll be available somewhere. I actually almost got Dark Horse to pick it up. My first graphic novel, The Blacksmith, when I finished it, I showed it at Comic-Con in 2019, the last year of Comic-Con, before it shut down. And one of the associate editors from Dark Horse came by and picked up the comic. I printed early copies of it out of my own money, my own pockets. I paid for it before the Kickstarter finished, and I sold it at Comic-Con just to get early preview copies out there. And she liked it, and she contacted me saying she worked for Dark Horse, and she showed her the comic and also her thoughts to the editors and stuff like that. And they wanted to have a meeting, and they talked about it. They discussed future potential routes of any other books they want to sign up, and I was in the runnings for it. But then, of course, the world shut down. So this was literally in March when I was talking with them. So Comic Con was last July of 2019, and I heard from her like the end of the year in December, and then going to January, February, we're in discussions for it, and then March happened, and then the world shut down, and then from there, it all broke down basically, because a lot of the funding they were planning to actually launch new books, they decided not to do, mainly because they were afraid of spending a lot of money elsewhere, because it was so uncertain as to what was going to happen because of the pandemic, um, and that was that. So. But they kept an open channel. They said maybe into the future, if we do more stuff, we can talk about it. I have no idea, Luke. I thought Dark Horse was still independent, from my knowledge, because they're supposed to be based up in the Northwest. Because I grew up in Portland, Oregon, so I was always surrounded by Dark Horse comic stuff. Um, but who knows? Maybe they are. I don't know. So we've drawn about maybe 20, 25 minutes. I want to get this one done. We'll spend about another 10 minutes on this one. We're almost there, actually. Maybe some of you guys are drawing werewolves also. I mean, obviously we're back past Halloween now, but I've been in a series of just like a bunch of horror films in the last couple of nights because you get in the mood. I rewatched some of them and they were kind of terrible. I rewatched The Exorcist 2. Terrible. It took me literally 2 nights to finish it because it was just so boring. Um, I wanted to watch this new film on Netflix, The Barbarian. That one looked interesting. Yeah, I had that one that where I watched Teen Wolf again. Um, I tried to watch that one that was on. It was also on HBO Max. Not the recent Halloween, Halloween Ends, but Halloween Kills, the one that came before. I couldn't even finish it. It was so bad. I only had watched up to like like the only first couple of sequels of Halloween. The first one and maybe like the second and third, but I never watched any of the ones afterwards. So I wanted to just check it out. The one that came out, the one before. Man, it was so bad. It looked like a college, kind of like movie, a student film almost. Am I going to be GDC? No, I've never been to GDC. Art's asking, at what point in your art learning did you start doing structured exercises more than free sketching? When I was a student at Art Center, when I became a college student full time, learning the technical formats. Before that, it was more just kind of like draw from what I see and draw from the inspirations of people that I like, but it wasn't necessarily formal training of techniques. Again, these shadow shapes I'm creating here, I'm designing for the image. It's not what will literally happen with the light. So I don't know exactly what would be cast shadow in these areas, unless I actually saw a form under light. But I'm designing these shadow shapes because in the sketch, it just what is the most appealing to me. So it's not based on reality in some cases. It's for the sake of the design of the image. How crazy are my taxes? Quite a bit. So, as an independent artist, especially with my classes and teachings, whatever income I get from that, I cut out 20% of it, essentially, and I give it to the government. Um, so yeah, I pay on two sides. I pay state taxes and I pay the IRS. Um, so on both ends of it, for IRS, I cut out like 20% of my income from whatever I get. So I have my gross that comes in, and then I have certain things I cut out for taxes and rates, and also if I'm paying, because being an independent artist, I'm not paying into things like a 401k. I don't have one. I don't pay into anything else. I have a personal thing that I go for, like a Roth IRA that I pay into for life insurance, health and stuff I have to pay on myself as well too. So everything else is out of my own pocket. If I was working for a company, like I said, then a lot of those taxes are handled by the corporate office, and they would do all that stuff for you. But as an independent, I'm supposed to be making quarterly payments, but I'm pretty bad at that because I forget all the time. So I end up just paying everything at once at the end, which you'll pay fees, late fees and that kind of stuff. But it's just what it is. But as long as you're understanding of how much money you should have that's separate, that's going to be going to the government, you're not spending that money, then hopefully by the end of that year, you're going to be okay. So, and so for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing that. And, it's not like I'm living check to check. I have a little bit of, I'm saving, but it is difficult because, the daily expenditures of rent and food and everything else, even though I can make a decent amount, it's still difficult, to be able to save a lot of money. Especially here in like in LA. If I was living in a different state and my housing costs were a lot less and everything else a lot lower as well too, I probably would be doing a lot better, honestly. But I've been wanting to also make an escrow, not an LLC, but an escrow for a company kind of thing. Mainly because then I can also basically just pay myself through the company, and all the taxes and stuff like that can be set aside already preemptively for that. I need to do this, but I haven't done it just yet. I thought about LLC at first, but then my CPA, my tax guy was like, do an escrow, And we write off a lot, a lot of stuff. I'll write off these cards. I'll write off some sneakers. I'll write off all my art supplies, all my research, all my travels. I write them all off because it's a part of my research and also application of things I do for work. I'll draw on sneakers. I'll sell some of them. I'll produce artwork inspired by those things. That's just the way it goes. Man, we have a bot in here. How'd that work? I don't even know how you would delete that. I guess I have to go into my YouTube. Remove, I guess. Anything for reference, of course. Absolutely. Jay Decker's asking, how would you recommend dealing with days where your art just doesn't come out as you expected, or if you don't think it looks very good? Well, I would say, turn to things that you are able to actually accomplish in a decent manner. So turn to the interests, turn to things you like. Now, I know that's not necessarily the best feeling because you feel like, well, I've already done that. I just kind of repeat my drawings over and over again. Um, but that's what this is. Is to be able to get into the right state of mind to feel comfortable and confident in producing something you actually are able to do. And as you do that, spend maybe half an hour going into this and then move into something back into challenging. So if you feel that sense of frustration, get out of it, draw stuff that you kind of can do really easily, get back up into the warm up, then move back into something more challenging after that. If we're starting to get spammers and bots in here, that means we're hitting numbers at a level now that is attracting it. I think it's the first time we've had bots in here, because usually I'm only having like 70, 80 people viewing, and I think that's what we have right now too. Maybe like only 40 viewers. It's not that many, but I've been doing a lot more live streaming in the last couple weeks, so maybe that's why too. I don't know how these algorithms work anymore. I feel like I've kind of fallen out of the loop of actually really how to work the social media. Because my Instagram and stuff like that used to grow so steadily, and it's kind of just stagnated. YouTube has kind of grown pretty quickly though. That's because I'm pretty consistent on it. But in terms of like my Instagram, it's at a good level of engagement, and I like it, and it's a good space for me to generate work and share it. But in terms of growth, I mean, it's trickle effect. But I think that's for everybody. I don't do the reels, I don't do videos as much. I tried the whole reel thing, and it's fine, but it's not the way my content's built, and I'm not gonna do it. So if it means my growth is gonna be much slower, it's okay. I have enough followers as it is. I don't need more. All right, we're just gonna go into the hand here. Later on, I'm probably gonna refine this a little bit more before I post it in terms of smaller specific details, which I will later on. But for the live sketch aspect of it, this is gonna be more than enough. You know what I feel like watching tonight? It's gonna be I've been wanting to rewatch the whole Indiana Jones series. I don't know why I thought about that, but I wanted to watch it again. I'm excited for the new one because they're filming it. I hope for the best because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was dog crap. Man, that was a wasted opportunity. But now that he's older and he's not going to do another film again, I hope they really knock this one out of the park. The next Indiana Jones. There is EC. There is a new Indiana Jones coming out. No trailer yet, but it's been announced. Indy is back, much older. He's already, I think he broke his leg in production and filming. Um, and it took time for him to heal, and then the pandemic was also happening, so production came out really slow. I can't remember if he broke his leg on that set. No, it wasn't. No, he actually did injure himself in Star Wars as well too. I think like broke his ankle or something. And then he had that plane crash accident. I don't know if anybody remembers that. He crashed his plane like a golf cart or a golf field or something like this. Raiders is a pretty perfect movie. There's definitely a set of movies that you can call perfect as a film. I think the first Back to the Future is a perfect movie. Um, I think Raiders is a perfect film. It's a film you could just watch over and over again. And yes, there are inherent problems within it, as small little things, but they don't take away from it. Every aspect of it works in many degrees. Favorite black ink for watercolors? I don't really use black ink for watercolors. I use black ink for drawing it, but I don't do it like ink wash. I'll just use a mixture of paints to get my darks in watercolor. I usually mix burnt umber and ultramarine together. Predator first movie is a pretty perfect movie. It's self-contained and it doesn't need sequels. Of course, they make them for the money aspect of it, but if those movies were just left as their own, it would still be perfect. They don't need the extra additional sequels to make the world better. In itself is already fantastic, and so those films work independently of their own, which is always why they always say the sequels are never as good. However, from Raiders to Temple, I mean Raiders is better. Temple was darker, but it's not better than Raiders. Back to the Future, though, the first one is pretty perfect. Second one I actually like a lot. When they go to the future, that one's a pretty close, even. I would say the first and second Back to the Future. Alien and Aliens is interesting because again they're both equally perfect movies, but they're different genre types. One is more horror, one is more action. So they're the same universe but different genres of movies. Prey was good. There were some issues with it, but I liked it a lot. Compared to any other Predator film, that was the best one. Actually, I actually enjoy Alien vs Predator, the first one. It's one of those guilty pleasure movies for me. And I'll also say Alien 3, I'm actually a fan of it. The director's cut is actually pretty good. The theatrical cut sucks, but the director's cut solid. Alien 4, meh. Prometheus, meh. What was the one after Prometheus? Alien Covenant? That was also whatever. AVP, yeah, AVP2, not so much. I didn't like that either. But the first one I enjoyed. I actually collected the Hot Toys figures of the Predators from them. People complain because they were so big, but I liked that. They were just like these massive hulking like wrestlers almost. But they're youthful. They're supposed to be like young, Yacha Predators, and they're kind of inexperienced and they're more bruisers and that kind of stuff. I just like that there were just different types of Predators because there are right in the culture. There are ones that are much more sleek and more kind of like maybe elegant, and ones that are just kind of heavy set and big wrestler types maybe. I thought it actually elevated the cultural part of the Predators a bit more in the Alien vs Predator because it borrows from the comic so much, and the Alien vs Predator comic is amazing. The first one, Dark Knight beats Batman Begins. Yeah, I would agree with that one. Dark Knight is a much better movie. Terminator and Terminator 2, I would say, is also the same with Aliens. First Terminator is more of a horror film. Second Terminator is more of an action film. I do collect a lot of figures. I do. Unfortunately. As like anything else I collect, there's just too much of it. Sneakers to these cards and fashion and figures and toys. Too much. And if I even wanted to sell them off, I can't really even sell them anymore because nobody's buying anything because of the way the recession is and people are out of money. They're not spending on big stuff these days. So the market has crashed in a lot of things in collection. Sneaker market crashed, you know. But I still buy sneakers because I collect them for myself. I don't sell them. Lord of the Rings films, yeah. They People complained a lot about Rings of Power, but if you look at Lord of the Rings, it's also quite alternate to the books as well too. Peter Jackson made a lot of changes in the story, but it is design wise, production wise, way better. Ring of Power wasn't bad, honestly, in my opinion. Production level wise, costuming to the world. I love the way they handled the dwarves, the dwarf culture and that environmental and the costuming. I thought was really well done compared to the original Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit was dog shit. Didn't like it at all. It's fun watch once in a while, but they really wrung the towel on that one. They try to get every drop out of it. I actually been listening to Sumerian, the audiobook. I didn't have a chance to sit down and read it, but I'm listening to the audiobook. I'm still in the middle of listening to it. It's great. I love encyclopedia kind of books like that. It has just tons of just information about the world. That's why I like that book a lot. And I recently bought the collector's edition of the Lord of the Rings book. It was a recent release on Amazon, and it's got this. It's all three books in the one big one, and it has a map and a collector edition kind of casing on it. It's a beautiful book, actually. House of the Dragon, I did watch. I actually liked that a lot too. I thought the fantasy side of the world of shows recently have been fantastic. I liked Rings of Power. I liked House of the Dragon. Um, Game of Thrones, I enjoyed, and everybody hated the last season, rightfully so. And it was a great start. I hopefully the Rings of Power, not Rings of Power, but House of Dragon also goes well. It's setting it up perfectly. The smile design in Hobbit was pretty good. Yeah, I agree with that. There are definite shining aspects of the Hobbit. The main actor for Bilbo was great. I thought he did a fantastic job. The dwarves were terrible in my opinion. Not in terms of acting, but just the look of them design wise. Everything was a bit too like soft. You know, Smog was great. I liked Lake Town. I thought that was actually pretty well done as well too. Oh, they're releasing another book. Is it from his like notes from Tolkien and stuff like that? I wonder. The Fall of Numenor. It's gonna be interesting. Again, they're gonna pull as much as they can from his corpse as they can. Give him some whiskers, snarling spit coming out. I'm gonna refine all these areas. The white tool, by the way, I want to show you guys what I use. This is a recent pickup. Is a tool called Manga Liner. I've never used this before. I don't even know what company this is. Uh, is made in Japan, obviously. It's a company called Higashiyama. Higashiyama. I'm assuming this comes in black also, but this is a white paint pen essentially. But this is it's a really nice one. It's not really going right now. Let me see if I can get it going. It's supposed to be really nice and opaque. There's not a lot of ink coming out of it just yet. Let me mix it up a bit more. Like for instance, like the jelly rolls from Sakura. I think it's Sakura. I don't really like those as a highlight tool, which is a bit too transparent to me. The Uniball Signo. is a pretty good highlight tool, but it's a little bit inconsistent. It just doesn't work so well sometimes. But I picked this up at the local art store, and they said, this is a really nice opaque, and then the line is thin, and it can also be quite heavy and thick. Once it starts to go, I do like it. So anything like, little off hairs or little whiskers and maybe even like a bit of a bounce light I can throw in. And this highlight tool seems to work pretty nicely. It's also quite, fat, so must be a lot of ink in there, so probably last a while. Poscas I do like as well too. And those I'm pretty confident with. But this manga liner is pretty nice. I do want to find the black one if I can. What's my favorite dwarf design? Warhammer stuff is pretty cool. Dwarves though, ooh. I'm trying to think of anything that really stands out in attention. I mean, to be honest, when I first saw Lord of the Rings, I really did enjoy the way some of the dwarves were portrayed, especially the environment. When they go into the mines of Moria was pretty stunning, especially when it comes to location. They didn't really show a lot of dwarves. Um, that's why I actually really like the Rings of Power so much because I thought they really fleshed out more of the world of the dwarves, not just in terms of location, but especially of the people, costume wise, and especially the makeup that they did. I thought was really fantastic. They got the proportions really well. A lot of times, like the Hobbit, reason why didn't work so nice is because the proportions were really bizarre. They were just basically shrunken down people, but because the proportions were exactly as they would be as a normal human being, they were just scaled down. But dwarves, proportion wise, should be very specific. So I thought they executed it in this recent show very nicely. But in terms of like classic films, I can't think of any others really. you know. Parker for the Berserk manga. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I mean, I think the art style is fantastic. It's very visceral and energetic. A lot of dynamic action. The paneling is very cool, very cinematic as well too. I love the extremeness of the design and style. It very much reminds me a little bit of Fist of the North Star when it comes to some of the styling. Some of those like really heavy, bulky, muscular kind of guys. Um, I don't know why it reminds me of that, but I like Fist of the North Star a lot actually. But yeah, Berserk stands on its own for sure. Okay, well, I think we're gonna stop here at this point. We've gone as far as I think I need to go for the time being. I'm gonna maybe touch this up a little bit later on in specific details. But I just wanted to show you guys a slight extension to what we kind of came from earlier, which was this wolf design, kind of wolf man. And I want to do a full body version of it. I'm actually going to incorporate a few additional small pieces around them just to dress up the actual shot. Maybe do like a ground plane, maybe a little bit, maybe some additional like skeletons or skulls or anything else around I can do, just to place it in there. Power lifters for dwarves. That's a good kind of reference. Okay, well, it's been about almost 2.5 hours. I wasn't expecting to go online again today, but I do hope that you guys were able to enjoy another session of live stream today with me. I think this week might be it. I'm actually traveling to SF on Friday, so I'll be out for the weekend, and I don't come back till Sunday. So I think next week when the classes begin, Friday of that time at the end of the week is probably the next time I'll be on. So it won't be as consistent in terms of every, kind of like every other day, kind of doing live streaming, but I will definitely be on at least once a week. That's my plan because my classes are still starting, but they're definitely a lot more truncated, so it'll be easier to manage. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed. And next time you join me around on Friday, I'll be doing another live stream to kind of join with people, and then I'll keep doing this kind of one-offs here and there. Okay. But in any case, have a good night, you guys. I appreciate it. I will see you all next time.